Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast is your one-stop shop for fantasy football news and advice. Can't decide on who to draft on the first round? Going gaga on how to line up your team. Got you covered. Traditional league, dynasty league, PPR league, IDP league, even daily fantasy football league. Join us as we break down all the questions of fantasy football. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
And thank you for tuning into the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, where we talk about everything in fantasy football, from the games last night, the games coming up this weekend, who to start, who to sit. As always, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Jeremiah, as always.
And, all right, so we're going to start off today. We're going to start off with the game last night, that game between the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Fantasy-wise, it was good for some people. Fantasy-wise, it was good for, say, a Jameis Winston, right? 260 yards and 3 touchdowns. That looks nice. He did kind of that, Blake Bortles garbage time stuff where basically you get a lot of points where it doesn't matter, which if you have a fantasy football team, you don't really care when it comes.
It don't matter at all.
It does not come in the first quarter, come in the fourth quarter. Whenever you're going to get it, all you got to do is get it. And for Atlanta, Matt Ryan, MVP candidate, basically him, Tom Brady, Derek Carr, they're kind of in that range. Ezekiel Elliott, depending on how he finishes. If he finishes around 1,900 yards, he may get it. But for Matt Ryan, 344 yards last night, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Throwing all over the place, Julio Jones had 111 yards. Mohamed Sanu came back a little bit. He had 74 yards receiving. Yet on the other end, you had Mike Evans get 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also 11 receptions, if that helps you in the PPR league. Devontae Freeman had 77 yards rushing and 28 yards receiving, so a nice little 100-yard total offense game for him. For Tampa Bay, the running game basically didn't produce what you would hope it would with Peyton Barber and Anton Smith, because they were basically trying to patch things up because you had injuries in the running game for them. For the Falcons, they look like a team basically you're going to have to start going forward. I understand that sometimes Julio Jones had games where he was really good and really bad. He had that 300-yard receiving game, followed that up the next week with only 29 receiving yards, then 139, 174, followed that up against Green Bay with 29 yards receiving. But more often than not, he's going to get you around 100 yards receiving because he's basically one of those, just throw the ball up, I'll figure it out kind of receivers, along with like an Amari Cooper, an Odell Beckham, an A.J. Green, people like that, right? And going forward, I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a team that Jameis Winston will have good games and bad games. He's kind of inconsistent. But for the Atlanta Falcons, if you have anybody on that team, even Mohamed Sanu, assuming he's kind of your flex or third-string wide receiver, you got to start him and basically anybody on Atlanta.
Yeah, and you have to start these running backs too. Remember when Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman were both active? They made plays all over the field. No matter who was in the backfield, both of these guys are going to get their touches. They're going to get their points.
Mm-hmm.
And
both receiving and rushing.
I think this is the only duo of running backs they can start. Like, say if you have Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman, I think they're that team. You can start both of them. And
yeah,
you start happy with them.
Yeah, you had some confidence early in the year with Theo Riddick and Amir Abdullah, but then Abdullah got hurt, so you got to take that away. But yeah, they're probably, as far as a dual running back, like maybe you want to talk about DeMarco Murray and
Derek
Henry over in Tennessee. That would be something you might start because now Derek Henry's kind of getting into form a little bit. He's starting to look like the running back over in Alabama. But yeah, no, I mean, like even with them, Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman, they're both, people both rushing and receiving. Like I said, Freeman combined to have over 100 yards of total offense. So now you kind of look going forward within Atlanta. You got this win that looks really nice. You follow it up with the Eagles, Cardinals, and Chiefs. not exactly the easiest games with teams. All three of them, at least with the Cardinals and Chiefs and the Eagles, they all have a pretty good secondary. They all have teams that are pretty good defensively, so it'll be a little bit of a struggle. But considering what they've done the weeks before, I think, you got to keep starting Atlanta.
Yeah, and Mike Evans also, I think he got hurt in this game as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, he left early, put up really great numbers.
Fantastic,
He's been like a must start from here on out.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I do think he's going to get healthy because, they do got 10 days to the next game.
Yeah.
So going forward, Tampa Bay, they played the Bears. They looked really good on Monday night against the Vikings.
Right.
But I don't know if they're going to be consistent.
I think that's just Jay Cutler being good for a game, and it's like, oh, look how good he is, and then he plays out the game.
It's one of those inconsistencies that we always see from Jay Cutler. And then they also have the Chiefs, the Seahawks, two tough matchups. Whoever is the starting running back, Jacquizz Rodgers, Doug Martin.
Right.
Those are two matchups. And Jacquizz Rodgers looks like he might come back against the Bears, so I do think he may be someone you have to start then. I don't know when Doug Martin's coming back. At this point, who knows?
Sure.
It's kind of like the same injury, the same way that Carlos Hyde treated for the Niners last year. We had that hurt hamstring. Didn't even play it down the rest of the year. So I don't know. I don't want to go that far with Doug Martin because he's been a really good fantasy running back past couple season and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And Jameis Winston, I think he's just someone that you have to stream. Honestly, he's just not. I just think he's just a streamer quarterback to this point. He did get two good cupcake matchups against defenses because I know the Falcons are a good team. Defense is not.
Yeah.
Niners, not a good team. But moving forward, I do think he has the potential of putting up good numbers against the Bears. And I know we saw what the Vikings offense did against the Bears defense, but remember, the Vikings don't have a good offensive line.
Right.
They don't have really good running back play. They don't have good quarterback play right now after that was the case early in the year. But I do think that's a good game to possibly start Winston because if you have someone a bye week or you have someone else in a kind of like a tough matchup. Because I think this is the last week when there's like a lot of teams on the bye. I think this is like the last one of the season.
Yeah, so you look at basically how Jameson's done this year, right? He's had 2 good games against Atlanta, but Atlanta has a really bad defense. He had a good game against the Niners, and he had a good game against L.A., which L.A.'s kind of been hit or miss every year. They're 12th right now in passing yards against, so they've been an okay team. But when you face Arizona, a good defensive team, 1 touchdown, 4 interceptions. When you face Denver, a good defensive team, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. So depending on who he faces, if you face him against a good team on defense, don't start him. But if the team that he's facing is just kind of average to bad, then you start him because he's still second year in the league. Like, he's not anywhere polished or whatever. So against the Bears, start him. Probably against the Chiefs and Seahawks, probably not. Kind of keep him away. Chargers, Saints, start him. You kind of just every week it's just looking like, okay, he's playing that guy. No, never mind. Let's put him on the bench and start whoever else you have.
Yeah, and it's a couple Buccaneers I want to talk about. What's his name? Austin Humphries.
Mm-hmm.
He looked like he's someone that can be trending upward. If Mike Evans happens to miss one game, I think he's someone you might have to pick up next week and maybe start as your flex or your third receiver. Cameron Brate, he looks like he's a very valuable option at tight end. It's been historically the weakest position in fantasy.
Right.
So I think he's someone that has to be on your radar right now, especially getting to the point where you have to start thinking about playoffs if you're still in contention.
Right.
That is. I think there's 2 guys you might have to keep your eye on here. And, I do think you have to start Mohamed Sanu now, too.
Oh, 100%.
I think you have to. That wasn't the case a couple weeks ago, but the last 2 games against the Green Bay Packers and against the Buccaneers, he's looked really good. It looks like he's finally involved in this offense, and he's someone that you can – Matt Ryan can someone rely on outside Julio Jones because Julio Jones is going to draw double coverage no matter what, even though Julio Jones is going to put up numbers. And Matt Ryan must start. I don't think there's any discussion there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you're talking about Cameron Brate. He's someone who, tight end is one of those positions where if you can get 10 points, you feel good unless you have someone like Gronk. But, 43 yards and a touchdown this week, 22 and a touchdown the week before that. solid enough production, not anything that you're going to like be totally, enamored with. But, tight ends are hard to come by. I started off the year, with Gary Barnidge. I thought that was going to be a good thing. That was not. It was very terrible. So, you kind of adjust from there, and you got to pick up other people. I picked up Greg Olsen in a trade. That's always going to be a fun thing because Greg Olsen's basically the only other tight end that you kind of understand every week they're going to have good receiving yards along with, obviously, Gronkowski. So looking forward with Tampa Bay, if their running back situation can get hammered out, if Jaquiz Rogers can come back, if Doug Martin can get back, they're a good enough team offensively because we saw how good Mike Evans is when Mike Evans is at his peak. It's some teams, so it's a game where, for Mike Evans, he had 150 yards this week. He had 96 2 weeks before that, 89 before that. He's been a pretty good receiver 3 of the last 4 weeks. And, with Jameis Winston, like I said, next week you start him. I think he can have a good week the week after that as well, assuming the concussion protocol thing, goes fine. Like I said, he has a handful of days to basically get that all right and taken care of. Concussions are a weird thing to where you can be great a day later or you can be terrible for months after the fact.
Yeah, and for a perfect example is Devontae Adams, who was in concussion protocol 2 weeks ago, and he had his best game of his career
right.
Thursday Night Football. But we're going to take our first break here at the Going to Me Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, and we're going to get into our For Real segment like we do here every Friday. We're going to talk about a couple players. We're going to discuss if we think if they're for real or not in fantasy.
Right.
But, yeah, we're going to talk about that when we get back here.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Going to Me Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast. And now we're going to get into our For Real segment here at the podcast. We know Anthony and I do this segment on the regular football show. Mm-hmm. Every Wednesday we do it with Alex.
Yep.
If that's his real name.
That is.
But no, man, yeah, shout out to Alex there. He's not here. He's actually not here on Fridays.
Nope.
Okay. But anyway, we're going to get into our For Real segment here, and I got to talk about a quarterback that put together a beautiful performance.
Right.
Probably he performed really good for the Oakland Raiders.
Right.
Had the most passing yards in a game, franchise history, not saying a lot because of the quarterbacks that they had there. I'm going to talk about Derek Carr. Yeah. Is he for real or not?
I mean, yeah.
Well,
I would assume for real.
You got to let me talk first before you answer. All right.
Say your thing.
I think he is a legit quarterback. He can finish in the top 5 in fantasy. I can't really see that. I can't really see that not happening now. Mm-hmm. And he does have a tough matchup this Sunday against the Denver Broncos.
Right.
I do think he's going to play. I think he's going to put okay numbers. He's not going to get like 30 points like he did last week.
Yeah.
But I think that he might get close to maybe 18, 19, maybe 20.
Sure.
But outside of that, I think he's for real. I think he is for real because, remember, I think he is this Raiders team right now.
I mean, he's
outside of Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree, but without Carr, I don't think those guys will be making any plays.
Right. We've seen, I mean, this is one of the best years Crabtree's had in the NFL. He had okay numbers when he was in San Francisco. But, yeah, you take a look at Carr, and he's somebody who, he's slowly getting a little bit better. 3rd year in the league, slowly progressing every year. He's on pace to get over 4,000 yards again. He's not anybody who will kind of light it up offensively like I understand he did last week, but Tampa Bay's defense is bad, as we saw against Atlanta when Matt Ryan was carving them up. And you take into account how good the team is offensively around him. Like you talked about Amari Cooper, you talked about Michael Crabtree. Latavius Murray is somebody who is an okay running back. He hasn't been doing well this year, but he had 1,000 yards last year. So he's somebody who has been pretty reliable, and you take all those things into account. It helps out a quarterback to start the year. We've seen that in Dallas. We've seen that in Philadelphia, where basically if you don't ask the quarterback to do that much, they can slowly progress. They can do a little bit more and more and more, kind of call it the Tom Brady effect, right? Because Tom Brady wasn't that when he started. Slowly he got a little bit better, and then Randy Moss came, and everything was different after that. I think Amari Cooper makes Derek Carr better than what he actually is, but at the same time, I do think he is for real.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that. I think, Derek Carr and Amari Cooper, they go hand in hand. You know, Derek Carr makes Amari Cooper better. Amari Cooper makes Derek Carr better.
Right.
And I really do think Derek Carr has made Michael Crabtree better. Because remember, he did put together a couple of solid seasons in San Francisco when Colin Kaepernick was actually a good quarterback.
Right.
But
when that whole team was good.
That whole team was good. Yeah. Exactly. So it was a different team that Crabtree is used to. Mm-hmm. He's in a team that's basically run by a pass defense, and that bodes well. You know, Derek Carr is going to get you. He's going to throw it. I think he's going to throw at least like 30 to 40 times a game because this team can't run the ball.
Right.
They can't run the ball with 3 different running backs there, and to me that's a huge problem for them in reality. But fantasy wise, that's really good for Derek Carr and Derek Carr owners, including myself.
Right.
Because I started the year off with Carson Palmer and Derek Carr. Carson Palmer has fell off.
Yeah.
He fell off the fantasy radar for me, my eyes. But I do think Derek Carr is for real. I think he's someone he looks like an every week starter to me.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Even in a tough match against the Broncos.
And you talk about Crabtree being good. He's on pace to have a better year than he did his best year in San Francisco in 2012. He's on pace to have over 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. He's looking like somebody who you kind of hoped he would be coming out of Texas Tech when he was just a great, great wide receiver over in Texas Tech. Yeah, Derek Carr is somebody who, like I said, maybe doesn't put up 500 yards passing because that's obviously not sustainable. But, if he can get against the Denver defense anywhere from 250 to 300, and basically doesn't throw an interception or two, I think they have a really good chance, Oakland does, of beating Denver.
Yeah, and that's going to be huge this Sunday. But what team or player do you want to talk about in this segment, Anthony?
So, for me, I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions. Right, you look at the Detroit Lions, they are the team that, along with the San Diego Chargers, have basically been that kind of every game is close. You make the fan base insane. You make the fan base, basically have a stroke every single time just because you don't know what's going to happen. They lost last week by 7 to the Houston Texans. That doesn't look great. But you beat the Redskins by 3. You beat the Rams by 3. You beat the Eagles by 1. You lost by 3 to the Bears. You lost by 7 to the Packers. Lost by 1 against the Titans and won by 4 against the Colts. Every game you had a chance to win or lose. You've won 3 of your last 4, losing, like I said, to 7 points against the Texans, and the Texans stink. Now you got them going against the Minnesota Vikings. This will be the game where it's basically you're going to figure out if the Lions can be good or not, right? The Vikings have had struggles offensively. You started off the season with a good offensive line, Adrian Peterson, Sam Bradford. Now, terrible offensive line. Khalil got hurt. You got Bridgewater, who just shredded his knee, and Peterson, who knows? Maybe he comes back next week. It's Adrian Peterson, and no one knows. But the whole team is different, but that defense is insane. And now you got Detroit Lions, who Stafford looks a little bit, I wouldn't say better, but he looks the same, without Megatron, right? And maybe it was the whole thing you've heard people talk about where it's basically the same sort of thing with Adrian Peterson of like you have to get this guy involved, right? He's so ridiculously talented. You have to get him the ball. Now you don't, right? Now you can kind of throw around to Marvin Jones. You can throw it around to different people on the team, and it's not going to kill you because now it's kind of more balanced. Now you're looking around more instead of just like, oh, is Calvin Johnson open? No. Oh, crap, now I got to look around, right? It's kind of one of those things of you don't just stare something down forever. But for the Detroit Lions, I want to see if they're for real. I think they are enough for real because, even though they're 4-4, they could easily be, call it 7-1 or something like that, depending if everything breaks right. But I guess on that same lines, they could also be 1-7. But 2 out of the next 3 weeks are playing the Vikings. In the middle of that, you get the Jaguars. If they can win 2 out of those 3 games, that's going to help out a lot. And I think they are for real, at least in the sense of like they are a good enough team to potentially, get a wild card spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they have some offensive playmakers here, for your fantasy guys out here. Matthew Stafford's been one of the top fantasy quarterbacks. Marvin Jones came on fire first couple of weeks. He's kind of fallen off a little bit. And then Golden Tate, he did get more involved in the past couple of weeks.
Right.
But ever since Theo Riddick has returned, it looks like that might hurt his value a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric Ebron, he's coming back. That bodes well for the tight end position because he's a red zone target. Mm-hmm. But that also hurts Anquan Bolden.
Sure.
But I do think the only must-start guy are two must-start players on this team, Matthew Stafford and Marvin Jones. I feel like Marvin Jones is the number one guy.
Right.
He has to start him. Matthew Stafford, he's putting up good numbers. I think maybe if this team goes on to win games and go into playoffs, I think he could potentially be an MVP candidate. That's saying a lot, but he is putting those kind of numbers.
Yeah.
But I do think the team in general is for real. I just feel like, they just need to learn how to run the ball.
Right.
That's all it is.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And you look at someone like a Theo Riddick, someone who's slowly been coming on, right? He's had an okay game, rushing, whatever, but he also gets you the yards in receiving, right? He gets 31 yards receiving, 31 yards rushing, 27 yards receiving, 49, 33, 56, 77. He's slowly gotten a little bit better as the weeks go on. I would start him in a lot of leagues just to see, how that goes, just basically because you can do both the receiving and the rushing, get a lot of points with that. You don't have to worry about him just as far as a running back. But, okay, so we're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to go start and sit. We're going to see the people who looks like they have a bad matchup. You want to stay away from them, or someone who's having a good matchup. A lot of times it tends to be against the Browns and Niners. We'll see if that's the same thing coming out the break. But we'll be right back here in the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Whenever I'm getting ready for a big event, I always like to clean up good, and I do so with a razor from Harry's. Compared to other razors I used to have, Harry's is the smoothest shave I've ever had. So why Harry's? Big razor companies always had small changes come out with the newest versions, and razors already are really high prices. So unlike those other guys, Harry's doesn't believe in upcharging, which is why they made their razors even better, and they're keeping prices exactly the same. Harry's 5 razor blades now includes softer flex hinge for a more comfortable glide, trimmer blade for hard-to-reach places, lubricating strip, and textured handle for more control when it's wet. Harry's is so confident in their guarantee at their blades, they'll send you their popular free trial, which comes with a free razor, fire blade cartridge, and shaving gel. To get your free trial, start and subscribe for $3 plus shipping. Plus, I have a special offer for you. Enter code GSMC at checkout. Shave balm, this comes free with your order. Go to harrys.com right now and enter code GSMC at checkout to claim your free trial. Set and post shave balm. That's harrys.com. That's HARRYS.com.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast. And we're going to get into our final segment of the week, and that is, of course, start and sit. Who to start and who to sit. All right, well, I got to talk about running back and a quarterback, and they're playing the Browns and the 49ers. That's just how you tease it.
I got you.
And I actually have a player on the Browns I'm going to talk about.
Okay.
But I'm going to tell you why you should sit him. Not because he's on the Browns, but because
I don't think he's on the Browns. But okay, go.
I don't think he's going to be involved. But let's get into, you want to get the bad news or the good news first? You want to tell people who to sit or who to start?
Let's go bad news because we always like to end it with the good news.
All right, let's go. All right, who do you want to sit this week?
So for me, I'm going to say you said Blake Bortles. You're going up against Kansas City's defense.
If he's on any rosters at all.
I mean, Bortles is good with the garbage time. That's the thing, though, with Bortles. He's really good at getting you those garbage time touchdowns. Shout out to Kitty Nolan. He's one of those people who basically is really good when it doesn't matter, right? He's really good at getting you those like 2 touchdowns and they're down by 28 points. And it's like, oh, look, he had 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Yeah, but not really, right? So now you're starting off this thing. You're going against the Kansas City Chiefs defense, and Marcus Peters leads the leagues in interceptions. They only allow, as a team, Kansas City does, 245 yards passing. So they do a good job holding teams like that. And as good as he's done in the past, with Kansas City, I think the game is going to be pretty close, which means he's not going to get those like extra garbage time yards because Nick Foles is going to be your starter. It's not going to be any kind of a blowout. So I don't think that Blake Bortles is going to do what you think he's going to do this week against the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah. And I have to tend to agree with you on that. I just think Blake Bortles needs to be sat, period. That's just me. I love the shout-out, by the way. And I want to talk about Gary Barnidge, your boy.
Right.
Your boy, Gary Barnidge. Yeah, your boy.
He's not my boy anymore. I don't have him on my fantasy team anymore. But okay, yes, my boy. Go,
He's
yes.
Your boy, all right. Yeah, I would advise you guys to sit Gary Barnidge this week, and not because he's on the Browns.
Right.
Because I think he has a tough matchup against tight ends, and Corey Coleman is coming back in this game. And Cody Kessler is a starter, and he never really found Barnidge a lot, when he was a starter. He doesn't have a single touchdown this year. And it's disappointing when Josh McCown started last week, and then I remember we were talking this with Ben. Barnidge had like 32 yards on the first play, and I think he ended up with like 45 or something.
Right.
And then Ben told us how he picked him up. He was like, I was like, really? And if you don't know who Ben is, by the way, if you don't listen to any of the show on this network, he is our co-host for the football show every Friday, and I also do the baseball show with him. But anyways, it's a fantasy show. So, yeah, I would advise you guys to sit because I don't think he's involved in this offense at all anymore. I think he was just a guy that was just probably like a half a season wonder last year.
Right.
Yeah. And he made really good plays last year, too. It's really disappointing. So I think he's just someone that kind of has to stay off your radar for a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
But are you ready against the players who do starts?
Yep. All right. So for me, now this might sound a little bit biased because I am a Dolphins fan, but I'm also good enough with understanding that the Dolphins have stunk in certain aspects. So as far as the start, I'm not going to go with Jay Ajayi because we've hit that enough for the last couple of weeks. I'm going to say start Ryan Tannehill.
Really?
Okay. Here's the thing. So Jay Ajayi is really good, right? We kind of figured that out over the last 2 weeks. He's not going to get 200 yards again, probably. Who knows? But he's going to do pretty well. And when that happens, you basically have to have the defense prepare for that, right? And the Giants or the Jets that they're playing, they're really good against the run, right? They allow the league best 74 yards per game rushing, right? So they're already going to be kind of focused on making sure Jay Ajayi doesn't do that again. So what does that mean? You kind of get that 8 men in the box, kind of bring the safety down every now and then to make sure that doesn't happen. That helps out Ryan Tannehill. That offensive line is better now because now you got Tunsil, you got Flowers. So you have a really good offensive line, and also you have something where now you face the New York Jets passing defense, which is not good. We talked about how good their rushing stuff was. Now, yards per game passing-wise, they allow the second worst, right? They allow 289 yards passing. The only team that's worse is the Atlanta Falcons, and we talked about how bad they are. They just did this stuff to Jameis Winston. So you take a look at how bad their passing defense is compared to the rushing offense, how good Miami's rushing actually is. I think you're going to do enough stuff with Jay Ajayi to where it helps out Ryan Tannehill, and I think you can have a pretty good game this week against the Jets. Okay.
Man, all right. Tannehill's your boy now.
For now.
For 1 week.
I say that for now.
For 1 week.
Right.
Okay.
Because he can have a good game now that you got Pouncey on the offensive line, who's
that's
really
huge.
good.
That's huge.
Pouncey's there. Tunsil was the first-round pick.
Finally got a running game going now.
Brandon Albert over the left tackle. Right. You have this good offensive line that's actually healthy now, right? And that helps Jay Ajayi, and that also is going to help Brian Tannehill. I think that actually can help him have a good week this week.
It can help Jarvis Landry. Stills,
right?
All those guys. But yeah, I can dig it. Really soft matchup. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also going to talk about a quarterback, and that is Dak Prescott.
Right.
He has a very good matchup this week. He's playing the Browns.
That always helps.
Browns are one of the worst defenses in the league. This team is young all over the field on that side of the ball, and I know they got Jamie Collins, but Jamie Collins has only been there for like 3 days.
Right.
And I don't even know if he wants to be there. But anyway, that's a different topic for a different day.
Sure.
Different show. But I do think Dak Prescott is going to be really good this week against the Browns. It looked like he played his worst game last week against the Eagles because he looked really subpar majority of the game. And this is a good defense, by the way.
Right.
But he pulled together and made plays late in the game, and his final stat line looks reasonably really good. 287 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Right.
He had a touchdown on the ground, so he had 3 total. He did throw a pick, but he had really good production. He had a real good stat line. In fantasy, that's all I really care about.
Mm-hmm.
And he put together a really good stat line against a very solid defense. Now he's going against one of the worst defenses in the league. And I think this is a really good prime matchup for Dak Prescott to finally solidify himself as a for sure starter if he hasn't done so already.
Yep.
If Jerry Jones still thinks Tony Romo was the guy. But
right. He had 287 yards last week against a good defense. The Cleveland Browns averaged 278 yards passing against every week. Yeah, you would assume he'd have somewhere close to 300 yards passing this week. And, yeah, I'm totally – basically, it's kind of our thing, always go against the Browns.
And always go against the Niners, and that leads me to Mark Ingram. And
sure.
I know Mark Ingram got benched last week. Tim Hightower took majority of the snaps. But I do think Mark Ingram and Hightower are guys you need to start this week in the most golden matchup every week.
Right.
Against the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
Because the 49ers can't stop anybody.
They stink.
They can't stop anybody on run defense.
Mm-hmm.
Can't stop anybody in the pass.
They stink.
They can't play. They can't stop anybody.
It's bad.
It's really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And Mark Ingram looks like he's going to have a really good bounce back game after playing his worst game of his career.
Right.
I don't remember a game that bad from a running back in a long time.
Right.
I do think this is a really good bounce back game. I think he's going to score a touchdown. I think he's going to break one this week. I think he's going to break for a long run. I think it might happen first play of the game, first drive. I don't know. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I do. Him and Tim Hightower are both guys you need to start this week in your lineups.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And that concludes our show.
All right. We'd like to thank you guys for tuning into the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast. We will be back on Tuesday. I will not be here.
I will be here.
Will be here. You can do a fantastic job. I will come back next Friday, and we'll start this over again. But for the meantime, I'm Anthony.
I'm Jeremiah.
And we will see you on Tuesday.